And now we go from food to baseball.
I know.
Mandy
What better
Bell is
transition
here.
is there? Mandy, have you ever gone to a restaurant and eaten so much you thought you were going to die on the bathroom floor? Because Adam just told us he really.
Of course. You gotta at least purge at least once in a while. I'm fangirling a little bit. I'm a huge fan of his. So
he's great.
Grew up
Really
watching
cool.
Man vs. Food, so tough act to follow. Jeez, guys.
Awesome
Thanks.
guy.
What's
Awesome
the
guy.
best food at the Progressive Food press box, would you say?
Oh, press box?
Or either. Press box?
Let's go concessions.
Go
Let's
concessions.
Yeah.
All right, that's probably a better idea.
Fat Rooster. I think you can't beat Fat Rooster. It's out in left field. Out in left field. Spicy chicken sandwiches.
Wow, yeah, very good.
That's good stuff.
There's only one though there, right? Is that the one that's out in
left field, right underneath the bleachers?
Yes,
Yep,
yeah.
that would be my number one, I think.
I actually think overall the concessions here, and I've been to a lot of stadiums. You've probably been more than me, but the concessions here are really good.
They are. They are. I think it's supposed to be. I mean, I have family that's vegan, and they've always talked about the fact that this is one of the highest ranking ones for food variety and just the concessions in general. I've always gotten good feedback.
Very good.
Yeah.
So, Mandy, first of all, thanks for joining us. We all read you religiously.
Thank you.
We think that you're the voice to listen to when it comes to the Guardians. So we're thrilled to have you in. We haven't even talked about this on the show yet, but I have a fear. I live in skepticism as a Cleveland sports fan. The glass is empty to me.
Okay.
That way my expectations aren't spoiled.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the win total, I think, later. And I think Vegas' over-under is 87.5, and I think that's about right. But my fear is this. What they did last year is one of the toughest things to duplicate because they had so many contributions from young guys that other teams didn't necessarily have the full book on. Now they do, and we all know about the sophomore slump, and that's real. My fear here is that they're going to underachieve this year after they wildly overachieved last year. Tell me I'm wrong, please.
I don't know if it's wildly underachieve. I do think that it's nearly impossible to duplicate. I mean, you can't do that
It's
all
lightning
again.
in a bottle, wasn't it?
You can't do that all again. Everything had to go right, and everything went right. And how often does that happen? I mean, never.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be maybe a little bit more struggle than what these younger guys are used to having. But I do think that they have a solid foundation. I don't think it's going to be wildly underwhelming this year. And they did add. I know Mike Zunino's not the answer to all the problems
They
here.
upgraded.
But they got Josh Bell, and I think that he'll be a big help for this lineup, and not just for the lineup in general, but for Jose Ramirez. I think having him behind Jose is going to do wonders for him, finally, to have some sort of threat behind him, because last year he had none.
Right.
So I think that's a big bonus for him, and anytime you can allow him to be better, I mean, it could be the MVP season finally, but I think that you have a lot of things going right now. You have to have a lot with pitching that goes right. You have 3 solid starters. Are those 4 and 5 okay? There's a lot still that needs to go right. It's going to be difficult to be as good as they were last year, but I don't think it's impossible.
Mandy, you look at their 40-man roster is loaded with all these good prospects. I think for 2 years we've all been assuming they're going to make some sort of big trade where they trade 3 or 4 of these guys and get a big player. They haven't done it. We still have time here, maybe, that they'll do something, although it doesn't look. I'd like them to trade for Bryan Reynolds, but supposedly the asking price
You and a lot of people.
very high, right? But they have essentially given up by trading away both Will Benson, who they traded this week, and Nolan Jones, who they traded right before the Rule 5 draft, who both at one time were top prospects. I mean, Benson was a first-round pick. Nolan Jones, 2 years ago, was considered the best prospect in the system. And they've essentially gave both those guys away. I know they got a high draft pick for Benson, but it was really 40-man roster crunches. And it's hard to be critical of this front office because they seem to get everything right. Were you surprised that both those guys are gone for virtually nothing?
Benson, it caught me a little bit more by surprise.
Yeah.
Just because I wasn't expecting that move at that time.
Yeah.
But it makes sense in a way. I don't know if I'm more surprised, maybe a little bit more by what they got in return. But Nolan Jones didn't have a spot on this
He
team.
didn't. That's true.
It's once they locked up Jose for that extension, he didn't have anywhere to go, and he was trying so hard to play more in the outfield. He was trying so hard. He, at the end of the season, was saying, "Please let me try to go down in AAA and play first base. I will he was trying to be as versatile as possible, and he took that upon himself. But you can't just keep having guys play out of position. And we've seen that the last few years. We saw that with Owen Miller over at first base, and that caused a lot of problems. So they're trying to be adapting, but Nolan Jones, it could have just ended up being a DFA, and you don't want to just DFA a guy like that. Yeah. So they got something back, I guess, and I think that's the way that they looked at it. He was never going to really find a home there. And then eventually, like Will Benson, you started to have Will Brennan creep ahead of him.
Right.
I don't know where Richie Palacios is in that pecking order, but you have all these guys. So it was overcrowded, and I just don't think they had a home.
I'm curious about, in terms of catcher, right? Like you can't go into the season expecting Mike Zunino to play 150 games, right? He missed a lot of time due to injury last year. Obviously, they have Bo Naylor. They did pick up a couple yesterday. They just signed, what's his name, former first-round pick? I forgot his name now. Who's the White Sox? They signed him to a minor league contract. They also
Zach Collins, right?
Thank you. And then Meibrys Viloria, if I'm pronouncing his name right, who's also had some time in the big leagues.
Yep.
Do you think one of those guys ends up being the second catcher, or is it a situation where if Bo Naylor has a big spring, maybe it's a 50-50 or 60-40 timeshare with Zunino? No? If
Zunino is healthy, which they are expecting him to be, but you never know how this goes. If he's healthy, I think 100% Bo Naylor's in AAA. Okay. It doesn't matter how big his spring is.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow. I really think he's 100% in AAA.
Why? Just because you don't want him to sit here and not get
correct. They want him to play.
Yeah,
and
work on things.
They want him to play. And him getting sporadic playing time is not what they want right now for him to continue to develop.
Even if it is at the big league level. They would rather
and I think they want him to play for a little bit longer. It's difficult to ignore the fact that...
Did they expect more from him last year? I did. I know, but...
No, I don't think so.
No?
I know it
was a very short window they got to see him, but I expected a little more.
I think they were blown away by his minor league season. They were really impressed with the way that he bounced back from the year before.
Yeah, I meant specifically his time.
Right. And then whenever he came up, I think they wanted to get those first jitters out of the way for him. I think that was all that really was. I don't think they were trying to solve much in just 5 games that he was able to get into. It was really just trying to get rid of the first, so when he did come up this year, he would be a little bit more acclimated and understand.
Not so wide-eyed.
Correct. And I think that's really what that solved. But I think he's going to be more a couple months down the line.
Let me ask you about the financials. Jay had brought up a couple weeks ago about the Bally's deal, and when you look at a team like the Guardians, they're middle of the road. Where they got to win. They got to tear it down every 5 or 7 years. They can't spend a bunch of money on a lot of top flight names. However, when you look at maybe $40-50 million with the Bally's deal and might not have that money to use as far as their operating costs, is this something that you're going to see effects on the everyday roster, how they go about getting free agents, signing individuals to the team? Do you think that is going to show within the next couple of years the way they operate, or they're already operating as so, and they'll be able to, I guess, kind of spread it out?
I mean, they definitely have more experience in this area than the normal team, I think. So
they know how to pinch pennies.
They can get crafty. So if anyone can figure it out, it's them. But I do think that it's something that we're not really used to seeing. Like, small teams really rely on those TV deals. I mean, that's so much of what comes in for them, their income. And so to lose that, it's hard to imagine that wouldn't be a difficult obstacle.
It's basically the 15 smaller markets.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I don't know how this is going to work. I've got a TV background. I know a lot of people in this.
MLB is taking it over.
Jay,
I don't get it.
A $50 million loss to a small market team
can be devastating.
is devastating.
Now, they did take on another.
What I've been looking for out of the Guardians, Mandy, is this. What's your game plan here? Because it's not like you're losing $50,000 here. Right? This money has been allocated for contracts and things of this nature, moving the franchise forward. If this is not coming your way, there is no other revenue stream coming.
He's got the money. We'll just spend it.
I think that's the mistake the average fan makes, is to think that Dolan is flush with millions.
Sell the team. Sell the team if you can't afford to pay the
payroll.
payroll.
It suddenly sounds like my Twitter mentions.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry we did that to you, Mandy.
So what do you think happens here, right? Because this train is coming. The train is going to come to the station.
Yeah.
Oh, we can hear the whistle.
They had the lowest payroll, or one of the lowest payrolls in baseball last year. How much lower can they go?
I'll throw a thesis out and see if you agree with it.
Okay.
I know we've known this has been coming. The Guardians are always ahead of the curve. They're always looking. They knew this was coming. I also don't think it's an accident that they took on another owner last year. He took on a minority owner last year.
Correct.
That's someone else who is very flush with cash that can provide an influx of funds if needed.
$50 million?
I don't know. I know
He's a
that
billionaire. Of
I
course
know
he can
this
afford
man.
$50 million.
This. He's got a lot of cash. This minority owner.
He does.
He's also brought into the mix a friend of ours, Matt Colleague, who's also part of this kind of minority ownership group. I think that they've been preparing for this all along. And to your point, they're ready. They know how to operate on a very thin checkbook. I think they'll be okay.
They do. I think they always figure out how to be okay. It's just,
There's levels to okay.
Yes, there's definitely
We've never
levels
seen
to
anything
okay.
like this. You know what my fear is, Mandy? There's already this huge chasm between the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
It's the geographical coastal advantage teams against middle America. And if you look at that Bally's group, they're the Milwaukees, the Cincinnatis, Texas, Detroit, Cleveland, Miami, all of these smaller market teams. I'm afraid that the gap between the Yankees, Mets, Cubs, Dodgers, Giants, and everybody else is going to get even wider. And if it does, this sport, which is already kind of treading water, I'm as a seam head, and this is my favorite sport, I worry about the future of our game. Are you at all worried about where this is going?
I'm a default optimist, so no. But like,
See, I'm a default pessimist.
yeah. So I always think it gets worked out. We always run into some sort of an issue at some point for any type of a sport, and everything always seems to work out. And before you get to that point, it seems so overwhelming, and it seems like it's going to be detrimental. And yeah, you can have some effects from things, but it never seems to ever completely wipe the slate clean. So I think this is going to be a problem. I think obviously there's no hiding that. I think it's pretty clear that it could be a problem, but the default optimist in me thinks okay, well,
Give it a
everyone's going to
couple
figure
years.
it out.
Give it a couple
Okay,
years.
all right, all right.
take-
I'll
it'll
check
wear
back
you
in.
down.
Let's take a break from feeling sorry for billionaires, and let's get to rule changes in Major League
Oh, yeah.
Baseball.
Sure.
Okay, you got this pitching clock. The veteran pitchers are going to lose their minds, right? I mean, they're going to lose their minds. I think the Guardians, and we had Will Brennan on right before Tribe Fest or whatever it's called, not Tribe Fest,
Guardians
Fest.
Guardians
Guard
Fest. He was like, well, a lot of us have been playing by these rules. We're a young team. And I think that's a big advantage they're going to. Now, Shane Bieber's been in the big leagues a while, but I think the fact that the Guardians are so young is a big advantage with some of these rule changes. Do you agree? Or-
Oh, I agree. It's hard not to be. I
Yeah.
think they've all just been experiencing it. It wasn't like it was the last few years. It was like a couple months ago. So
Right.
most of this team is so young that they're like, okay, well, we had a couple months without it. Whatever. We'll just go back into all of these same things. I definitely think it will be interesting to see someone like James Karinchak because he takes forever.
He's the guy
the
that you're talking
relievers in
about.
general.
He will
the
melt
relievers.
down.
Clase takes some
But
time
again,
too.
he was
Yeah.
a minor leaguer not that long ago.
Right.
He understands
They'll have to
it.
adjust. I mean, that's it.
The rotation, they're all quick. I don't think anyone has any problem with any of
But
that.
I can't wait to see like Max Scherzer.
Correct.
Oh,
Those
there
are the
are
guys that are
Verlander.
different.
They're going to
Slow
lose their
workers.
mind. They get called
No.
the ball because they didn't throw the pitch fast
By
enough.
the way,
they're going to lose their mind.
if
Those
that's
guys.
punitive enough that
Yes.
it will speed them up.
Oh yeah.
Because nobody wants to give away a free ball. But my thing is, the bottom line is it worked.
It
In
cut
the
down
minor
like
leagues.
35 minutes,
It cut
right?
a half hour off the average length of game.
Yep.
And clearly they're doing this to try to bring more young fans into the fold. Right now, this is sad to me because baseball's always been enough for me.
Yeah.
You can stage a game in the middle of a grass field somewhere. I'm going to show up.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at these stadium modifications, and they're all appeasements to 20-somethings to get them to come to the stadium and pretend we're a bar.
Yeah, but the problem is,
pretend
Jay,
we're a bar. There's a
Mandy-
freaking baseball game
Mandy
going
is
on.
one of only
But-
like
but-
50 people under the age of 40 that loves
but Jay-
baseball.
I
Jay-
know.
You guys
Jay-
know
Jay-
this. Love is not enough
Mandy-
to keep a relationship going.
Mandy is not just for the 20-something-year-old. There's a group of people out here that don't want to see 9 innings, right?
Yeah.
They want to experience the experience of going to a game, enjoying some good
No,
quality.
Brad, I get it.
I know that's the
I know
problem.
It's smart. It just pisses me off as a baseball fan
I get
to
it.
think that we've got the elite in the sport worldwide.
Yeah.
Not 1%, the 1/10 of 1% that have played this game. And it's got to be demeaning to the players, too. They're like, yo, we're out here doing our thing, and you're going to renovate the stadium and put more bars up here so people can pretend we like it.
They're doing it.
If it means more people in the park, they'll take it.
They're doing it in basketball.
I
They're
know.
doing it in football.
And they're all the same.
Stop
players
taking
are
my
the same
ball and go home.
generation.
Get off my lawn.
The players are the same generation as the people who are demanding this type of a thing. So
Right.
the players would get it as well. I mean, I hate to talk about it as if I'm not part of that, but I feel like I'm the outlier
damn
because
kids.
I wouldn't.
Jay, it's the same person that applied for the job that said, I'm not working for that. I'm not,
No, I know. You're right.
I
You're
can't
right.
give you the job now.
And look,
not
I'm
doing
glad
it.
they're
I'm
making the
not
improvements. I'm
doing
glad
it.
they're going to put more butts in seats. That's what this is all about, ultimately.
For a fringe guy, can anybody tell me if this is going to be used as a competitive advantage? Like we know what the Astros do, right? The Astros, and there are certain teams that say, okay, well, there's a shot clock now. For me, I'm like, yeah, it's a pitch count. So now,
I think the shift.
Are they gonna be a competitive nature to some teams say we're gonna maximize this, we're gonna play around on the bases, we're gonna do things
Mandy,
like that.
the bases being bigger, that's an advantage for the Guardians, who already run more than any team in the league, right?
Yeah, I think it has to be, and I
Yeah.
think it's going to make it fun. I think it
Absolutely.
Think about Jose Ramirez. He's already chaotic as it is on the base paths. He's already aggressive, but he does it in like a weird, safe way. I don't know how you can be aggressive and safe at the same time, but he's mastered that.
He's a great base runner.
He's
I don't think
incredible,
he gets enough credit
intelligent.
for that.
He doesn't.
Mandy, did you see what the increases were in successful steals at the minor league with the bigger bases?
Huge. And the Guardian, that's
I'm
an
blown
advantage.
away by that. It's not that much bigger, but that tells you how close every play is
I thought the
on the
same.
steal.
Right.
I thought maybe they'd go up 3 or 4%. It's over double digits
Yeah.
in terms of
Well,
successful
plus
steals.
for Jose specifically, you can't put the second baseman in the outfield anymore.
Correct.
So that's huge. He's going to get more hits.
Yep.
How many times does he see him line out to that short right field
A
area?
lot.
Yep.
So do these new rules, here's my question to you guys, because you're the baseball people. Do these new rules enamor you to a younger athlete? You know, because when they made the rules in basketball, not shorten the game, but the three-point line and everything else, it took the old school dudes basically out the game, right?
Yeah.
There's a new wave of person coming in here that, you know,
So will there
that
be
never,
a new,
that
will there
never
be a
existed.
new wave of players where stealing bases, because for the last 15 or 20 years,
Being phased out.
speed was like, okay, you're fast, that helps defensively, but we don't run anymore. So I think that might bring back that player like that Miguel Delaney to go really old school. I know you remember
Vince
him.
Coleman.
Vince Coleman, the guys whose careers were extended because they can get on and steal a base in a spot. That's a thing again, I think, with this.
Yeah, I definitely think it opens up a new avenue of like a specific niche of players that can thrive because of that. But to your point, I don't think it does really much to older players or more veteran players to really exclude them in any way, shape, or form, because I think it would be something like if you have shift limitations, maybe you see someone like Miguel Cabrera who's still been able to get more hits this year
probably
in his
help him.
farewell tour, and it's something that can help him. And so it's just like, I think that there's perks and there's disadvantages for both sets, I would guess. I think it doesn't seem like it's specific to
agree.
one.
I guess I always felt like baseball had removed itself from the people, right? There were purists that loved baseball, but it really removed itself from the people. Because at one time, baseball in the black neighborhood was solid.
What you mean? Everybody played.
It was solid.
Even
It ain't
if
solid
you
no
played
more.
basketball,
Well, just look
you
at the
played
number.
all summer.
Look at the number of black
It ain't even
players
lukewarm.
in the game. It's plummeted.
It's not even lukewarm.
Yeah.
So you exclude a whole set of folks that have what I say flavor to flavorize, because you're trying to sell your game to the public, right?
Sure.
So you have to marry the two, right? And that's what the NBA has figured out, how to marry the two.
I think baseball is trying to get in inner cities more and get more black players in the game because the numbers
Well, they've
have
got
been
great
going
programs
down.
for it.
Their RBI program is basically specific for
Right.
that.
And
They want that.
It's great here.
It is.
The Cleveland, they've made it to the national tournament. They've got unbelievable facilities.
It is great. Yep.
Beautiful
Wait a second.
facilities.
Here's the most important question. Sorry to cut everybody off, but Mandy, I need your advice. I have the third pick in my fantasy baseball draft.
I'm not giving fantasy
Wait a second.
advice.
Shohei Ohtani's going to go 1. I think Aaron Judge is going to go 2. So my choice is
You're trying to get me in
He got a-
trouble.
Jose or Trey Turner. Jose or Trey Turner.
Give it a
What say
side
you?
eye.
He's going to force you away. He's going to force you
trying to get me in
away.
trouble.
He's gonna keep
I'll
asking
answer
what
that
shit.
for you, Jose.
Should I take Jose? over
I
Trey
don't
Turner?
think you can go wrong with having Jose.
I think I'm going to take Jose.
Is that a
It'll
good
be more fun.
non-answer?
To Mandy's point earlier,
Yeah.
you know how important protection in the lineup is.
Yeah, sure.
It's massive. What he did last year, and this is why I knew he wasn't going to win it, and I even said it on this show, and I got attacked by people. I think if you look at pure value,
Right.
I still think that he was last year. It's even hard for me to say it because
you're out of your mind.
But in my eyes,
Yeah.
I know how hard it is to hit when you got nothing behind
Agreed.
you.
Jose's amazing, but
And
Aaron
what he
Judge was
did,
clearly the most valuable player.
I know he was. I know it. I
Yeah.
get it. And in any other year, it would have been much easier for me to make that argument.
Yeah.
And if
Because-
Jose didn't get hurt in June, it could have been a
Yes,
different
yes.
argument
I think
too.
that
He wasn't
also-
as good the second half.
You look at
because of
those
the
splits
injury.
between
No,
mid-June
clearly we
and
found
they're
out after the season that the hand was a lot more
Yeah.
of a hindrance than we thought it was.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to have a better year next year just because he's got protection behind him in the line.
How is this not Ohtani? How does he not get the,
I mean,
the
he
MVP
could just win the
every
MVP
year?
every year.
Well,
but
he's going to redefine that award
Yeah, yeah.
because
I'm confused.
on true
he's
value.
always going to redefine is when he's a free agent next year and he gets paid
Cool.
$500 million.
Yeah, the bank will be broken.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
And
gonna
by the
be
way, those
crazy.
15 Bally's teams probably won't even be in the bidding.
No.
They don't need to come
Although,
come
would
to
they
the
have been
table.
anyway?
No.
No, they
No.
wouldn't have.
No, they wouldn't have.
Mandy, I don't know if you know this because this is kind of really deeply in it's not on the field stuff, but we were talking before the show. MLB Network, thankfully, came out and said, look, we're going to cover these games. These games are going to be televised. How the hell are they going to do that?
I have no idea.
This is 15
I really don't.
Yeah.
teams. It's half the league
Mm-hmm.
is looking at a television situation where they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know.
They're going to figure. I mean, baseball's done a bad job of you can't stream games. There's all these blackouts, but hopefully they'll straighten it all out.
Put it on YouTube.
But I wanted to get back on the field for a minute because Ahmed Rosario's in probably his last year with the Guardians. They haven't traded him. At this point, I'm assuming they won't trade him.
Yeah.
But from what I've heard, and obviously you know it a lot better than me, he's very important in that locker room. He became a leader. Did that something that just happened this last year? I mean, how important is he to this team?
I think it did sort of blossom last year because the veteran guys and mid to late 20s is a veteran guy now for this
Yeah.
locker room. But it is. I mean, he had to be forced into a leadership type of a role because everyone around him is looking around saying, where do I go? I don't even know where to get to the training room. That, it's small things like that. And because he's so close to Jose, they are inseparable. You never see one without the other. They come in to every game, they leave every game, they go everywhere to warm up. Everything they do is together. And so Jose has a natural ability of leading, and he does it in a different way than most would do. And I think Ahmed Rosario has sort of fed off of that and learned from him and has sort of entered into that space of, okay, I'm going to lead these guys alongside Jose.
So let's get to the good stuff. Your knowledge here.
Okay.
How you get to this baseball thing? How did you get immersed in that? I know.
Brainwashed as a young
No.
child. That's all it takes.
Tell me
You had
how
no
that.
choice, did
Tell
you?
me how that
No,
happened.
Huge baseball fans
In-state,
growing
everything?
up. Yeah, just was always. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I was the one down in my basement by myself every single night watching baseball. And
Oh,
my dad obviously was a big baseball fan, and so grew up watching that together. And I became more psychotic than he is when
Were
it
you a
comes to it.
Phillies fan
And
or a Pirates fan?
neither?
Or neither? Who was your team growing up?
Oh, you're gonna
you don't wanna
out me
say?
again.
I don't remember.
You
Oh,
see,
don't
these
have to
questions,
say
see
it.
these
for all the
questions he be
teams.
doing?
I was a Yankees fan.
no.
So what?
Yeah. Oh boy.
Who
Don't tell
cares?
Twitter that.
Right.
Derek
Sorry.
Jeter was my big thing. So Derek Jeter
Makes
made
a lot of
Yes.
sense.
So
Mandy, have you met Jessica Mendoza?
I have.
at ESPN?
I have.
She educated me on a lot of things. Like a lot of Neanderthalic men,
Yeah.
when she first came into the baseball group at ESPN, I wrongly said, that's an interesting hire. Why are we going that route? And then I got to know her and work with her every day. And after 3 months of working
Knowledge.
with her, I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Jiminy Christmas.
awesome.
I get it. She is the most knowledgeable baseball
Yep.
friend that I have. I can talk to her, I completely lose sight of the fact that she never played the game. She was a softball player, but we've had deep hitting conversations before.
Oh, yeah.
Where, I mean, she was a record setter at Stanford. I'm wondering if what's maybe a piece of advice that she gave you, or what your relationship with her was like, and what it was like knowing her, getting to know her.
Now, if you know Sarah Langs,
Yes.
obviously anyone who follows us on Twitter knows that we're best friends.
She is, by the way, unbelievable.
Yes. Oh, of course.
I hope she would speak of me the same way.
And
she did to my face, but I don't know. Yeah. She's so nice to everybody.
She never says anything bad about
love
anyone.
her.
So
I love
yes.
her.
So I've met Jess through her.
Yeah.
Because she's still part-time for ESPN. She
Right.
helps out with their Sunday night baseball broadcasts. And so the last few years, I've traveled a little bit more with Sarah whenever she's needed to go to different places. And so I've met more ESPN people through her.
Right.
And so I think the thing with Jess is more just learning from her presence and just how she carries herself.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's difficult to be a minority in any type of a room, and so to see the way that she carries herself and doesn't feel the need to overprove that she belongs, because you can easily fall into that. I think it's easy to sit back and watch someone and just take away from the way that they carry themselves.
Do
You
you
mentioned-
kind of feel the same way about as a woman in sports? Do you sometimes you feel like you have to overprove your knowledge?
Oh,
like
yeah.
if you get in a room full of guys, you feel like
Most
hey,
guys are dopes.
I gotta let them know.
We are.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes do you find that pressure, and how do you deal with it?
I mean, it's easy to feel that whenever especially in a new environment. I mean, I came here in 2019, and you want to prove that I'm the only woman on the beat, really, that's day in and day out in the BBWAA for Cleveland. So you want to just be like, okay, I want to establish that I belong here. And I mean, luckily, this chapter, these guys who are in Cleveland, they're the greatest, and none of them have ever made me feel any other way.
I'm glad
but
to hear that.
internally,
Good.
you feel like, okay, as soon as you get here, you have to establish yourself.
G. Bush,
And-
to your point, like
good.
minority in sports. And I've had this conversation with women that have covered other sports, and I would love to talk to Aditi about this sometime because she's covered both baseball and basketball or NFL. Women are still the minority in sports media, but in the NFL and in NBA, they've caught up so fast that they're really not anymore. I mean, when you look around in the key positions, and it's in part because the women that have come in and done it have been mind-bogglingly good.
They're good.
Especially at the NBA
They're
level. I
good.
look at what
They're better than the guys.
I look at what Doris Burks does, and
Oh.
like,
Oh,
like
yeah.
her, and there's other pioneers. I think Jess is the pioneer in baseball, but
Yeah.
the women in baseball are a minority in
Yeah,
sports like
yeah.
none other we have.
Yeah.
And I just
true.
give you all the kudos in the world.
Thank you.
Because it is not easy to do what you
Yeah.
do, but you do it so well, regardless of what anybody else might be whispering or the idiots. Like you said, most men are. I was
we're
kind
a
of
bunch-
in
a
that
bunch of
group.
dopes.
I
We're-
asked the
yeah.
question about Jess, and I've told Jess this, and I've apologized to her. And I've learned, man, you just don't make those early judgments because they're always wrong.
Yeah, and you mentioned Sarah, who I know was diagnosed with ALS.
Yes.
And just awful, obviously. And I know you've been involved with trying to raise money for her.
Yeah.
She's a great writer.
How is she?
And how is she doing? And if you want to share any website or anything to try to promote to raise money for her?
Yeah, I mean, she's doing as good as you can. I mean, it's
Right.
the worst diagnosis that anyone could ever have. And right now, she's actually in the process of reading the book on Lou Gehrig's life. And
Oh,
that's
wow.
really interesting to hear her perspective on all of this because she's reading it. And last night, she actually just texted me and said he truly thought he was going to get better. Like they just, one, didn't have the information they have right now.
right.
And two, the doctors were so nervous about breaking that news that they were so nice and beating around the bush around it. And at that time, they had written like that they think that it won't be a terminal disease in the near future, and that was 1939. And there's been little to no improvement since then, which is just mind-boggling. And so, I mean, she's doing okay. She doesn't let it slow her down as much as it wants to.
Yeah.
She keeps powering through, and yes, like you said, I ran a half marathon. Would not recommend. That's not fun.
It's torture.
Yeah, it's absolute torture. But she was crazy and was a runner before all of this, and I still judge her for that. I'm like, why did you do this for fun? But I did a half marathon, her favorite one in Disney. We went together in January, and I was able to raise $100,000.
Oh, good for you.
So
Excellent.
So
Kudos
that's
to Hugh for that.
trying
Is there
to.
anything people could still do to?
We're actually about to shut it down in the next week, so I guess if we can get the last few, if anyone wants to go on there, you can go on my Twitter. It's my Twitter's MandyBell02. It's my pinned tweet. It's the GoFundMe is still up there. We're a
Do
little
what you
bit
can,
over.
folks.
And by the
Mandy,
way,
send me the link. We'll tweet
for
it out.
those of you that don't know
Show.
Sarah and her story, do you know a bigger baseball fan?
No, no.
I when I was in the Baseball Tonight group at the end of my time at ESPN, I told her this. I am surrounded by people that love baseball. One
She's
of my great
insane.
friends is Tim Kirkshin. Tim Kirkshin was such a nut that he literally, from the time he was a little boy, cut out every box score of every game and still has them stored in shoe boxes. And I keep telling him, you do know that there's Baseball Reference, like you can.
Well,
I know, but I got, you know. But she knows baseball more than him.
She just won an award in New York at their BBWAA dinner that I flew out there to go be with her for that. And Buster Olney gave the intro speech to her receiving the award, and he talked about the fact that he never thought he would find a bigger baseball fan than Tim Kirkshin, and somehow Sarah Langs is it.
Tim's
And
2 for me. She's number 1.
she's insane. She sits there and watches every Winter League game during the off season. And,
She does. And a
she's-
memory
She probably
like,
watched Korean baseball during the
oh,
pandemic.
if it's baseball and
yes.
it's on, she's
Yeah.
watching it, even if she has to stream it. And
Yeah.
She needs it.
What I noticed working with her was something obscure could come up when we were doing Baseball Tonight. A game that, you know, like just something so bizarre, and we might say, God, I don't know if that's ever happened.
Yeah.
No
She'd know
computer,
it.
no nothing. She goes,
Yeah.
no, it happened one other time, 1979, Pirates, Expos, and it's like,
She's
Amazing.
a walking
great.
database of knowledge.
it's unbelievable. I love her to death. She's awesome, and I'm so happy that you were able to raise that kind of money for her cause. Our thoughts and prayers
unbelievable.
are with her, and thank you.